Welcome into Coach Hayes Hudl as well as Head on a Swivel. My name is Chris Hayes. Along with me is Scott Green. We're happy to be with you tonight. It's nice to put our head down on the pillow and realize we wake up on Monday morning. And as we get into this week, the SEC champions, Georgia Bulldogs, and as we prepare, as we're about to be looking at a bye week and not even playing before we get to the end of this month, January 1st will be our first game. A lot of analytics to talk about. Did Notre Dame take their ball and go home? I'm really not sure what to think about that, but we've got a lot to talk about, so stick around. We'll be right back. We are Head on the Swivel. Scott Green along with Chris Hayes. We're glad you joined us this evening, whether you're catching us live or whether you're going to be catching us on a podcast later. We'd love that you come in here and just sit down and enjoy time with us for about an hour as we talk football, as we talk about analytics, as we talk about people out there that may seem to be a little bit on the delusional side. I know as the fanatics that we are for our Georgia Bulldogs, we're equally excited about the fact that Georgia is finished in the final college football playoff committee as the number 3 team. We're going to be talking about that later on in this show. We've got a lot of things to hit on with all the different, components of and the radicalisms of, people feeling like they've been unjustified this year due to it's just unfair now, Scott. Unfortunately, they just don't understand what it means to, try to get into that top 12 and all those kinds of things are going on. And also we want to share our excitement for being SEC champions, UGA again, back-to-back years, beating Texas last year, now beating Alabama, and doing it in right-so fashion has just been really good to see and obviously very exciting for us as fans. So, Scott, you welcome in this evening, and how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm amazed that despite the East and West divisions going away, Georgia somehow clawed and fought its way to back-to-back SEC titles. So I guess the East wasn't that weak. Um, the other nonsense that's going on is this playoff debacle from one fan base's perspective, and that's Notre Dame. They're kind of standing on an island and trying to act as if they were rug pulled. And look, I'll give them some credit in terms of, look, you being ranked 9th for all those weeks and then turn around and Bama is flipped with you on the December 2nd reveal. Okay, that's a legitimate criticism that I'll hear out. But to not play against BYU and send your message home, even with your backups, it's not a great look. I don't know if they're going to be afforded those bowl practices despite openly opting out. And for anyone who's listening, those are critical, man. You're regulated from NCAA practice standpoint of how many you can have, and then early enrollees can actually participate in those bowl games. That's huge. That's a really, really big advantage moving forward for any team that's trying to get set up for 2026. But back to the back-to-back SEC champions, for Georgia to do it in that way, in that statement, guys, look, it's only going to get better moving forward. When you have a young team like this and they look like that, I mean, I'm excited.
Well, right now I seem to be a little blurry. I can't figure out what's going on with my camera at this point in juncture. I think I just decided to filter it out, but I've got you on there, Scott. Everything's pretty well. I guess my camera will adjust here pretty soon. Trying to figure out why I'm having some technical difficulties here, but seemingly, are you still got me on audio? Are we okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I can hear you. And
Okay.
look, I can go into the weeds with this Notre Dame thing. I have a lot of Oregon friends. One of them, just give a quick shout out to. He just goes by Doug. He's really, really intricate in like the TV rights, grant of rights, all that really technical legalese of like how everything's balanced out. So I'll take a 30-second snapshot of what's going on with Notre Dame. So Notre Dame has an agreement with the Atlantic Coastal Conference. All their sports play in it with the exemption of football. So they have 4 to 6 ACC opponents they have to play a year, then the rest of them are selected by them. They have all these sweetheart deals, including an NBC TV contract, which is made back in, my dad's time in the 80s when there was only 3 teams that were televised, and if that was a good weekend. So they have all of this leverage, including, and this is what really makes it catastrophic to me from just an outsider's perspective, they have a memorandum of understanding that activates in 2026. They're guaranteed to be in the playoffs as a top 12 team. So what are you boycotting? Like outside of the message, like what are you accomplishing? Like, I would understand if you think you're accomplishing something. I can at least understand it. It doesn't mean I like it. But I'm coming from a fan base that in 2023, Georgia had 2 critical injuries. We didn't use them as excuses, or at least most of the fan base didn't. And the coaching staff definitely didn't. They went out, played with, I don't know, half backups, half starters, and absolutely blew Florida State's doors off and probably sent them back several years. And the message was clear. Hey, look, we're going to have to expand this thing because Georgia, if healthy, likely wins another title. If not, they compete for it. So it's just one of those nonsensical things I really disagree with. I think it sends a bad message. It's a bad PR thing. Now, Notre Dame fans, look, guys, I'm going to be honest, they still think it's 1980 some odd, that they're just so elite as a brand. They stand on the island. They're a monolith. Fortunately, they have some ammunition, according to last year, but last year's last year. Like, anyone who looks at this Georgia team and last year's Georgia team knows there's such a drastic difference. I mean, it's blatantly night and day. So just to do that, it's not good. It doesn't look good. And the only people that think it looks good are fans of Notre Dame.
You're exactly right. And to me, it's short-term memory as well. I find it so difficult when a team finally gets put in their place. And it's because of the fact that we've seen it since I've been alive, Scott. I've realized, NBC's had the contract with Notre Dame. They've just sat up there on their little hill. And, being in the independent league, finally for the first time, I thought for them not actually joining a conference really hurt them this year finally. And, they could have been in the Big 12. Realistically, where they need to be at is the Big 10. I know they're never going to join that because it's too competitive for them, honestly. They go out and if they're in the ACC, I mean, they play 2 SEC teams this year. The majority of their schedule was based around the ACC. They played 2 group of 5 teams this year. Their total overall record of the opponents they played was less than 500. I think it was like 50, 51, and 58, 51, and 59.
It's 50, 58, I believe.
Yeah, and and then on top of that, I think they played 4 teams that had 9 losses or more. It's really hard when I sit here and look at Notre Dame. Their loss to Miami and loss to Texas A&M at the beginning of the year, but their highest 2 profile wins is a win over number 20 USC and a win over Pitt, number 22, which is a same opponent Miami played that played Pitt better than Notre Dame did. Miami obviously has the head-to-head win, and that to me is what fits the profile. If you really want to blame anybody, blame the group of 5 thing. That's what to me is the biggest issue here. I'm not saying that you don't deserve to be in, but if you play in a conference, especially think about playing in the ACC, for example, it's a no-brainer after what the ACC debacle did this year where you got a Duke and a 7-5 team that wins the ACC. Are you kidding me? So, the way I look at it is just it's like these spoiled brats that just sit up there and they just have the silver spoon in the mouth. All of a sudden, they get smacked around for the fact that they're not in a conference, and they lose a head-to-head that fits right on the bubble point. And all of a sudden, because of the ACC being the complete debacle that it is, it allows 2 group of 5 teams in, which we know right now that is nothing more than just a character trait of having those guys in there. The group of 5 needs to have their own championship, period. And if they did that, that changes the whole dynamics. And I guarantee you that's probably something, Scott, we're going to see as time goes on, and for that change to happen so that we don't have these teams that are talking about that. But still, I kind of like the fact that they got slapped upside the head a little bit because of the fact they don't have their own conference that they're in. And, all those people who are definitely your Notre Dame advocates, they're going to sit there and just say, well, that's just the way it's been. It's the brand of Notre Dame. But I'm telling you right now, I've seen more delusional fans in their comments this actual last week than I have ever seen from the Notre Dame fan base. And I know not 1 or 2 tweets that I see on Twitter or X, however you want to call it, doesn't identify the entire fan base. But man, there's absolutely some delusional fan folks out there that truly believe that they are just in a somewhat better situation. They've got their silver spoon, sugar coated, ready to go, and they just deserve to be there no matter what. I mean, for the life of God, they were 0-2 at the beginning of the season and was still ranked in the top 25. Give me a break. All right. I would love to continue to talk about this because we do definitely have a segment for that. So what I'm going to do is hold off on going any further into that situation. I had a little technical difficulty there right out of the gate with some video issues. I apologize for me showing the blurriness, but I want to talk real quick about the SEC championship and obviously get your insight on some thoughts now that you've been able to lay your head down and think about it a little bit. But before we get to that, we got a few words from Georgia Sports Autographs. Georgia Sports Autographs is built by collectors for collectors. They know what fans want because they've been in your shoes, hunting for that perfect piece, the right signature, in the right spot. At every signing, Georgia Sports Autographs make sure it's done right, using the proper ink, following best practices and paying attention to every detail so you end up with a product you'll be proud to display. They've already worked with many of Georgia's top athletes, and their network gives them access to just about anything you can imagine. If you don't see it listed, don't assume it can't be done. Chances are they can get it for you. Georgia Sports Autograph tests themselves with every event, always improving, always delivering for the ultimate addition to your collection. Trust the team that treats every autograph like its own. Georgia Sports Autographs, where every signature tells a story. I've got the opportunity, Scott, that Georgia Sports Autographs, for those of you who are watching the show or catching it late, you'll notice I have the scroller going across the bottom of the screen. Right now, you have the ability to go to Georgia Sports Autographs and actually look for Christmas presents for those people who love their Georgia paraphernalia, signed authentic gear from things like cleats, gloves, canvases, posters, helmets, anything you can think of they can pretty much get for you. Roger and Sam, I've just welcomed them in as partners in doing the Georgia Sports Autograph signature. As you can see there, man, I look funny there beside Elias in that picture. That's hilarious looking at that. But, I've got a chance to meet some quality young men and just see them working in space and doing their job. Zachariah there as well. But for those of you who are interested in looking at something for maybe a Christmas gift for that, that fan that's hard to buy for, that friend or family member that's hard to buy for, you'll notice over in the comment section that I have their website linked in there. And I'll also make sure I put it in the link in my comments as well underneath if you're watching by YouTube. But if you go in and you choose something, you put in my coupon code of DAWGSIGN, DAWGSIGN, you'll receive 20% off your total purchase price. And that's all the way up to Christmas Day. So I definitely suggest for you to go in there and take a look at them. Roger and Sam do a great job. They've got a lot of things on their website now. It's up and running, doing well for itself. And again, if you use that dog sign promo code, you will receive 20% off towards your next purchase price with Georgia Sports Autographs. I appreciate you guys checking that out. If you get an opportunity to, it's definitely well worth it. Part of this whole process as we move forward, as Scott knows as well, that I do a lot of breakdowns, X's and O's, player profiles, recruit profiles. I have started a Patreon account where you basically have the chance to go in as a free member. You get to check out all the previews that I do as a coach and specifically all the different things that we see from the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, even special teams. I do player profiles of each individual player that maybe, like, for example, I'm really specifically looking at targeting Malachi Tolliver, Rashawn Dinkins, because those two guys shined a little bit this week in the SEC championship game. And then over an hour's worth of X's and O breakdowns, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So if you get a chance, you want to check out the Patreon, you got the QR code there at the bottom of the screen. All you got to do is click that QR code and go to the Patreon account for anything that you're looking for. I hope that you decide to do that because, like I said, I enjoyed, connecting fans to the fundamentals of football, and this is the way that I do it. And I appreciate you guys, as always, with your patronage to both Georgia Sports Autographs and as well my Patreon. Well, Scott, we have the SEC championship, my friend, 2-time in a row, 3 times over the last 5 years. I know you and I were a little bit on the reluctant side after we sort of hobbled through that win against Georgia Tech and really thought that we were supposed to just, sit into a situation of, hey, let somebody else play for that thing and let's just get some rest. And, now after seeing this, I was actually at the game sitting up in the 300 section and got a chance to watch this thing live. I know how special this is for Kirby Smart and staff. And I know how special it is now seeing these kids being able to go out there and compete, regardless of injury, regardless of all the different Alabama fans out there wanting to talk about their woes of injuries. Heck, everybody's beat up right now. We have our own set of injuries as well. To me, it was very fulfilling to see not only these guys go out and play well and sort of, exercise the demon of the Alabama, Crimson Tide and getting that off their back, but to see how they did it and see what we're doing at this point in time of the season. Defense beginning to roll, offense staying consistent, turnover free for the most part, playing very consistent football, and winning 28-7 this past Saturday in the SEC championship. So, Scott, just tell me your thoughts on that as we move through these next 3 weeks, as we're getting prepared for whoever's going to win between Ole Miss and Tulane. Pretty much we got Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans. Tell me what you're thinking right now that you've had a chance to kind of sleep on it and sort of go back and reflect on it.
Massive momentum building moment. something that you can establish and build confidence in of, look, this is likely your starting 22 plus or minus one or two key players. And so it only can get better from here. I think the thing I was really impressed with is obviously there were two additional injured players that we weren't really aware of until, kickoff happens. You have Jonell, and then you have Noah with his back issues. And so you just find a way to get the next man up to win. And that's the other thing that I don't really understand, that Bama and some of these other teams, when they lose, they have injuries. It's like, look, when those recruiting rankings come through, that's the whole intent behind it, is that not only is your starting 22 good, but you're starting 44, you're 66. And as you go deeper and deeper into the roster, you start understanding really how good your coaching and development is. And that's the thing about how amazing this staff has been, is they've slow burned the young guys into what you saw. And I thought this was a rewarding moment that not a lot of people, including myself, wanted to watch the team participate in. Yet they came out, they established one of the most physical, dominating performances I've seen between two playoff opponents, especially considering what Bama was able to accomplish earlier, and to really reset the board and to reset the narrative for this year. Anytime a team, make no mistake about it, a fan base, a team, an AD, whoever is using the past record after losing a game, just understand in their mind they're accepting it was an ass whooping. It's just that simple. Because I don't care about what happened in September, especially when 48% of this roster is freshmen, and we knew what the issues that they had, and we lost by 3. Look, you won that game, really tight margin. There is no way to articulate yourself out of losing by 21 points, and your only 7 points comes from 45 yards of penalty and a great pick play by the referee. And it's amazing now how drastic all this narrative shifts against our fan base of really, you need to rest, we need to do this. Now you have all this captured momentum, and you can't let it die over the next few weeks. And the best part is you didn't even play your best. There are still things you can improve on. You can't rest on your laurels and think, oh, well, this is that and this, and nothing needs to change. But I truly believe that this team has that mentality, that they understand the job truly is not finished, and there's so much things we can do better, but we can retain that physicality and that mentality for the quarter, semifinal. We may be able to do it.
First off, I want to give a shout out. This is my boy Cole Spear. A lot of people give this kid hell, because he came in as a wide receiver recruit. And, I wanted to talk about him real quick. I coached this kid as a middle school kid, and I realized his potential at Calhoun High School, what a good athlete he was. And I knew when he went to Georgia, he was going to be a program kid. He was going to be that kid who was going to do anything that was asked of him. He was going to go out and try his best, anything he could do. And, I think honestly, he ended up getting some, just the wide receiver talent that came in superseded what he could do. So he knew his role. He understood what his job was. He was going to go out and be a great special teams player, benefit on the wide receiver personnel when they needed him. He actually got in for some reps at wide receiver during the game as well. And, for him to come out and be able to have a punt block in a big game, the SEC championship game, is such a rewarding story from him because of what he's done. He is a program player as a senior now, who more than likely is not going to have necessarily all this playing time, but was a contributing role that turned the fate of that game into a positive momentum and set up the first touchdown that we scored. So really excited for special teams. I told you this in the game before they played, when we were talking about pregame stuff, that we needed to take a possession away. You've mentioned it many a times where you talk about now the way they've changed the rules with the way the timing and everything is set up, that you take possessions away. They're speeding the game up, or trying to anyway, for that matter. And for us to be able to take away a possession from them. If you think about it, so we have the turnover that's very important. That takes a possession away. But not only do we get the turnover, even after the penalty, we're able to capitalize with 7 points. But not only that, you look at a special teams punt block, that's just like a turnover in a sense as well. And also we capitalize on that as well. So you've got 2 different possession situations that helped us out with 14 points reciprocated from that. And that to me is a difference maker when it comes to winning a ball game. And if you think about it, we go ahead and score 2 more times, but still that to me is what set the precedent for the rest of the game. And honestly is, to me, that's something it gets overlooked at times because of the possession amounts that most teams get per game. And so that's something that's very important as well. I wanted to point out here, I was showing Xavier McLeod basically getting in Ty Simpson's grill here. The one thing that, and you mentioned this as well, to me, defensively was probably the best overall most consistent performance we have seen from them. They teased us in the Texas game. It came over into the Georgia Tech game. And now all of a sudden through Charlotte, you could just say that's a push. But, you come back out against Alabama. Guys, I want you to understand, you look at the fact they don't have a running back. You and I talked about this, Scott. Jam Miller, do we really see a significant difference even if Jam Miller's out there at running back? I mean, that's
Very
something.
slightly.
I agree with that. And, to me, you still have your three primary receivers. You still have your entire offensive line. And you still have Ty Simpson, who picked us apart in Athens in week 4. So, I don't want to sit there and listen to the fact of how you had these guys that were down, this, that, and the other. Because if you really think about it from the fact of, for example, the Cuevas kid that was out, the tight end kid, I thought y'all's tight end play was pretty good, honestly, in the game. You had a couple of receptions that did really well for you. Converted a few third downs with your backup tight end play as well. So to me, you can't just sit there on the laurels of saying, well, we have all these injuries now. But Alabama's been in a slow decline, a slow trend over the last 3 to 4 weeks. And honestly, they're hobbling into the playoffs as well, just like a lot of teams are. But, when I sit there and think about the SEC championship, it came down to those things that you talk about. All 3 phases of the game: offensive staying consistent, executing, sustaining drives, defense getting the ball turned over, special teams creating a turnover. And that's the reason why we're sitting here as UGA fans excited about all the positives that came from that, because you got 4 touchdowns scored based off drives that were sustained, set up by a good punt return by, Zachariah Branch, the punt block, obviously 2 drives that sustained and went down and scored as well. So you just can't, really put it past the fact of, the resiliency that Coach Smart talks about and how important it is. I sit there and look at all these kids holding these trophies, like Dalen Everett right here, sitting here holding this trophy up. I mean, very proud of this kid. A lot of people gave this kid hell his first couple of years, very similar to what they were trying to do with Ellis Robinson as well. But, he maintained his security out there and got better every year. And here he is now, basically a 3-time SEC champion, just like, Oscar Delp was talking about. They're running out of fingers for SEC championship rings as well. So, I'm very excited to see the totality of what we did on Saturday, but also to kind of write the final storyline into the book for the season for SEC play. And now we can shut that chapter, put that book in on it. And now we're going into the playoffs, and it's like a whole new season that we have to start with going forward.
Absolutely. That's the mentality you got to have. That's why, look, we only have 1 year sample size, but last year I think it was a really different dynamic with the 4 teams that were in. But going back to the SEC championship, I think there's a lot of narrative shifting that's starting to happen because people are contextualizing it. See, unfortunately, Georgia turned the ball over at inopportune moments in a really critical moment this year that afforded Alabama their winning margin. Obviously, people focus on the drop by Talon Taylor, the failed conversion on 4th and 1 due to Juan Gaston just blocking the wrong person. Guys, that turnover by Nate shouldn't be forgotten. But here's the thing that really impresses me about this team. If you watch all the specials that they have, the all accesses, and you see the look in Nate Frazier's face, he's telling in all the other running backs, look, I need this. We need this. And it truly was one of those mentalities team wide. I mean, the team sat down and asked anyone to sit up, raise your hand if you've beaten Alabama, and no one can do it. And that's because you're building the mental wall. So 2017, you lose by 1 play in overtime, a regulation in the SEC championship. You can afford that to look. Nick Saban's so much more experienced than Kirby, and Kirby's 3, 2, 4, 5 years in. I mean, heck, guys, Kirby's 10 years in, and he's one of the most tenured SEC coaches. You need to absorb this and trust the process. If this season has done anything for you, you've got to stop talking about the Kamari Lasters after 2022's Peach Bowl. Oh, he got burnt. Look at what we're asking the young guy to do. Oh, 2024. Oh, this is so awful. Look at the injuries we have in terms of mass scale. That's 8 different offensive linemen you played. Yes, there are issues and they will be addressed. Trust the process. 2025. Oh man, we can't do this. We can't do that. Right. We have 3 freshmen offensive line now. And look, I get captured by it. So as a fan, I start looking at it. But if I really step back and use this game as, like you said, the final chapter in the book of the regular season for 2025. It's a good response from Kirby to say, shut up. I know what I'm doing. Love it while it's here. And I'm going to continue being who I am. And that's one of the greatest things to see is you guys truly are watching history happen to reset the narrative moving forward because Kirby's not going to be here forever. But the big thing moving forward is, like you said, Coach, it is 0-0 game time. There is no reset. It doesn't matter what Ole Miss did before. This is as bad as the first time you played them. Expect a war. I don't care if Lane's there or not, and then move forward. But you really, really have to focus in on that first round, that second round, but the first round of the quarters, because if they can play anything like this and they can remain physical and really sound fundamentally, I know they're already innately good enough football players. And I would love to talk about personnel too, but really it's just capturing this mentality and holding on to it in the off season or the off time while you get healthy.
Mm. Yeah, I like this little comment that's made by 225 Girl 2. Appreciate y'all being in here with us tonight. We've got a lot of concurrent viewers watching at this point in juncture. We certainly appreciate you joining me and Scott for Head on a Swivel as we talk post-SEC championship against the Bama Crimson Tide and as we look forward to the Sugar Bowl and the winner of the Tulane-Ole Miss game, which a lot of people are already chalking up Ole Miss to be a rematch from I guess it'd be roughly around week 7, week 8.
Roughly there, yeah.
Yeah, I was at that ball game, actually. Got a chance to witness that game. The Dawgs slayed the dragon. It was a culmination of frustration and anguish, and the team displayed it on the field with dominance. You know, not enough is said about the -3 rushing yards for Bama and then on to the Sugar Bowl. I agree with that. I mean, I don't care who you've got in the backfield. I don't care how down you are. It blows me away that they couldn't figure out a way to establish any positive running game. It was unreal to think -3 rushing yards from Alabama. And that just goes to show the total dominance of what Georgia is doing. I'll say this before we move on. The one thing that I'm beginning to see, and you can't say enough about the young bucks. I mean, I know we've been talking about these kids, but just listen to these names. And I'm calling these all off the top of my head, whether they're true freshmen or they're sophomores that are classified as redshirt freshmen. But you've got the likes of Elijah Griffin, J.J. Hane, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, Nanande Aboko, Chris Cole, Justin Williams, DeMello Jones, Ellis Robinson. Now you throw a Rashawn Dinkins in there for Janelle Aguero and what he did. And I'm sitting there, I'm sure I'm missing somebody else. Quintavious Johnson is also in that role as well. Guys, we have got a young football team that's not only grown, and Coach Smart is going to go ahead and say you can't call them young anymore. They've got 13 games under their belt. They're beginning to be experienced in where they're at and tenured in where they're at, but they're beginning to trust one another. All of a sudden, the trust factor has really gelled what they're trying to do defensively, and I think Coach Schumann has done a really good job of putting guys in the right personnel settings, in the right groupings, and getting those things taken care of. Not to mention, I knew I was going to forget somebody. Zayden Walker is another one that fits into that profile too. So, and I'm sure I'm still missing somebody as well. I wanted to be able to just say, Coach Smart, you had one all SEC first teamer in CJ Allen. You have a long snapper on the first team, all SEC team, and you're 12-1. All right, or actually, I guess it'd be 12-1, and you are the SEC champions. If you're not responsible for being one of the coaches of the year, I don't know what is. I know there's a lot of people out there. Guys, tell you honest truth, I'm a big fan of Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, and we're going to actually talk about Clark here in a second when as far as the reason why I have such high respect for him as a coach. And so when we look at the fact of what Coach Smart has done this year, Scott, just tell me your thoughts on that in regards to him being nominated as one of the finalists for Coach of the Year.
I'm not gonna lie. I thought he should have been nominated last year with all the contention and all the issues.
Amen.
For 5 games, guys, I actually counted and put it on my notes. For 5 games, they were updating that Georgia led the nation in drops, and of the top 5, Georgia had 3. And so when you have those issues and you navigate them in such a way to still win the SEC, you lose what was supposed to be the most premier quarterback, and you have Gunnar Stockton come in and reestablish that physical toughness, and you see the team gather around it. Obviously, it didn't end the way we wanted to, but look, guys, this new football is all about efficiency. So those turnovers plague you, and stuff like that. Coaches can only mitigate; they can't stop. And too often as fans, we say, oh, well, Kirby did this wrong, he did that wrong. And sure, like, look, it is easy to go back, hindsight 2020, but turnovers are so critical. And unfortunately, it's 99% on the players. Now, obviously, you put them in bad situations that, expounds that problem. But guys, if Kirby is not the best coach currently coaching, there is no number two. I mean, it's so far and away him because you still have to add, look, all these other coaches had so many programs to jump through. Lane Kiffin has had how many jobs? Sarkisian's had how many jobs and opportunities? Kirby sat and waited his time behind arguably the greatest coach of all time, picked Georgia, came home, and has been skyrocketing ever since. To me, he should be a finalist moving forward unless something catastrophic happens. Because to watch this team go from step A to step B to step C to step D, when we want to get to E for elite, we're right there on the fringe. And if I told you, if I went back in time, week 2 against Marshall and Austin, PA, I said, hey, look, you're going to have one of the most efficient offenses in the nation. They're going to be number 8. And that's with them playing ridiculously good defenses that are talented. Just like Kirby talked about. I hate Florida to death, but they're a really talented defense. Your defense is going to be in the top 25 in FEI stats and all the efficiency stats. You would have looked at me and blinked like I had 3 heads. But that's all based on the coaching. And I joke about Glenn Schumann and all those problems, but at the end of the day, I even came to understand slowly but surely, look, man, he can't have these guys do too much. It's like having a first-day student in a calculus class and expecting them to understand like high-level integer complications and all that other stuff when it's like, hey, I just got out of algebra. So you have to work with them within their, their ability. But if you grow it and develop it like he has, again, point to any other program that could be going through what Georgia has gone through in terms of injury, in terms of youth. We're the second youngest team in the SEC just by roster alone, and look how many of those young guys are playing. I mean, that whole list, Coach, was darn near the whole defense.
Yep.
And to have these old guys lead those, that to me tells me the mentality is trickling down. And someone made a great comment. Alabama is soft. Alabama compared to their old self 100%.
That was our boy Axe that made that comment.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with him. And I appreciate him being here. That is the major difference between Kirby Smart coming out of the Saban tree and retaining that mentality. There is no team, I promise you, in the SEC right now that makes people take more ice baths, that takes more ibuprofen than the day after they play the Georgia Bulldogs. And that's all because of the man in the middle of the screen right there.
You're exactly right, my friend. And it's something that I think that makes me feel good because I'm an OG guy. I'm a Generation X guy that believes the respect issue and the things come from the small dispositions. It's not just about the X's and O's. It's doing the little things right. And a lot of times you'll have kids that are disgruntled about that because their character is basically very much dissolved and hasn't been learned yet, where you have to have tough love with these kids. And something I think Kirby does an excellent job. Not only is he a mastermind of the X's and O's, but he makes them do the little things right. That's the reason why high character kids are so important that are your 4 or 5-star kids, because typically you can bring in 5-star talent. We've seen it happen at any school where you have a 5-star talent kid comes in, but you get nothing out of them because they're a prima donna entitled kid. They've been given everything their entire life. They don't know how to work. They want the NIL money, but they don't want the work that goes with that. And you're not going to see the productivity from a kid that does that kind of thing or fits that kind of profile as they move through their college career. If you could really look at the CEO structure, the business platform that Coach Smart has, he says, listen, we're going to pay you. You're going to earn incentives based on what you do in our program, especially if you excel at it. Once we put you out there, like an IE Chris Cole, not to mention, I didn't even mention the offensive side of the ball. Heck, Malachi Tolliver in for Drew Bobo, Dontrell Glover, Warren Gaston. I mean, think about where we would be at right now if we didn't have those guys coming in to fit those positions. One is a redshirt freshman and the other 2 true freshmen. Are you kidding me? And we're still showing that solidification. That just goes to show what Stacey Searles is doing and bringing in John Lilly. And, I cannot right now for the life of me think about that other guy they brought in from Jacksonville. I usually keep names in pretty well. But, having those guys in there showing the ability to make those kids better and making them where you have more eyes on them so you're getting better practice reps every day with that as well, I think is so important. And that's what people don't see in today's new paradigm that we're seeing in college football. The NIL error as well as transfer portal and the way it's happening. Granted, we are going down finally to one transfer portal window, which I think will help a little bit. But still, it just comes to the fact that I think, to me, today's coaching is 1,000 times harder because I already know that the CEO name, the name and the badge that goes with that being a head coach is far more universal now than it ever was as far as being an X and O's guy. You can be the greatest X and O's guy in the world, but if you ain't a great businessman, you're not going to survive in today's college football paradigm that's being created now with the money hungry organizations that are out there that are trying to basically pay the highest bidder of who can do what for who. And, I really don't. And that's the reason why I think as fans, we get very frustrated in that mentality because we feel like we're losing the very essence of what college football is about, the very love that we fell in love with, that organic feeling that we have about college football is kind of being lost in the weeds because of the money hungry corporations that are trying to take these commodities and run with them instead of looking at these kids as being college athletes that should be able to use their name, image, and likeness for the ability to make a little money while they're there. But they're already getting everything paid for anyway. I mean, they're getting a college education for free. But come on, man, are we really looking at them as college athletes now that are just getting their tuitions paid for? I mean, these kids are basically on minor league NFL contracts that they're going in and doing. And that to me is where the focus is getting lost. And the reason why to me being a head coach in today's world in a Division I program is 20,000 times harder than it ever has been going forward. But still, though, good words on that as well. And the next one's going to be really funny. All you Bobo haters out there, guess what? We got 5 finalists for the Broyles Award. You know who the only offensive guy is as an assistant coach? This gentleman here in the middle of the screen. People don't realize how important it is when you see, Mike Bobo getting this award call. And to me, the only thing he's got left on his resume that really needs to fit, he finally got that SEC champion. He's had an SEC championship, but he's finally getting that SEC championship against an Alabama team where they go out and do a lot of good stuff. I just did a full 1-hour breakdown on their offense, and he cooked again, man. He had great play call designs, 23 personnel, 13 personnel, play action out of gun, running different I formations, all the different eye candies, running strata, layered stuff, flood, play action. Oh my goodness, everything that you want to see at a good offense out of the pro style look, and doing a phenomenal job with it. But this man has stood the test of time from people who don't understand ball, who don't realize everything that goes into the offensive potential that you have. And in the same way we saw Glenn Schumann on one side, we've had to be patient to watch Coach Bobo adapt his offense to the players that he's got to put these guys in the right frame of mind to get Gunnar Stockton lined up dynamically in what he does best. And we are seeing some of the best football being played, regardless of the conservativeness that I still think Gunnar is kind of fit under since he's thrown those couple of picks in the Texas game and in the Charlotte game back to back and in the Georgia Tech game. But still, though, it comes down to play that I think that Gunnar is playing good, consistent football, and it's because of the framework of what he's doing for this program right now. Your thoughts on that, Scott?
I think the hyper efficiency in the red zone is so impressive. To me, it's gotten to the point where, yep, Phil Rauscher absolutely acts. That's absolutely right. He's an
Thank you,
outstanding
X.
It's
I
all
forgot
good.
too.
There's so many staffers, but yeah, thank the Lord, Axe. That's a great degree to have, and I'm glad he's got it. But it's the hyper efficiency in the red zone in this game that made me actually feel comfortable. I actually was playing with my kid listening to Scott Howard, and then I would rush in to watch the TV when I'd get a chance. But anytime we got into the red zone or had a short field, I literally just felt comfortable. I said it's just a matter of time. Our scoring percentage in the red zone is roughly 92%. Of those, I would say 70 some odd percent touchdowns. That's insanely good because as that box shrinks and it becomes more of a square than a rectangle or more than it's a tiny rectangle, the defense can use that backstop of the end zone as another defender. They're
Yep.
kind of squeezing in on you. And for you to do what Bobo's done, I mean, that I believe it was offset. You can correct me if I'm wrong with Roger Robinson. He almost falls. But that to me reminded me of Bobo back in the day where he would call similar plays with the fullback coming out of the backfield, maybe with a little bit of boot action. Or it may have just been from the pocket, but just those really imaginative designs when you see what the defense is biting on and you use it against them. Guys, that's what Todd Monken did so well, was also imaginative personnel. But the thing we forget about the Todd Monken years, guys, he had the personnel to do it. Kenny McIntosh, James Cook, Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, Lad McConkey. And you go down the list and you say, well, look, Todd Monken arguably still a better OC, but he had all these weapons to work with, and he was able to leverage defenses using that. So in 2024, we put that imprint on him, like Bobo should take off running with it. And then you start looking at all the deficiencies, the guys that will be good players but aren't players yet. And then you start thinking about it. Absolutely, Chase. We did. We went 4 for 4, and that to me is just really impressive with how good Bama's defense is, at least athletically. I still think that side of the ball is physical for them, but just not as physical as Georgia's offense. So the thing with managing everything, like you said, is the personnel sets. I mean, we could list throughout all the film 23, 13, 12, and just go up and down with how that leverages things and makes Gunner's life easy to be efficient. Obviously, execution's still hard, but that just really, it's like they've captured what the game has become with all the clock changes, the game changes, how formations and personnel sets are done now, and they've kind of captured that perfectly and said, this is what we're going to have to be to do everything we need to do. It may not be super sexy all the time. There'll be moments that you really are your mouth's watering saying, I need more of that go route from, Dallin Taylor or whoever. But guys, walking down the field methodically destroys your opponent in so many ways, because by the time they look at the clock, they say there's not enough time for us to do what counts, or it squeezes them to the point where they say we got to do a lot in a little bit amount of time. And imagine the Georgia defense is on the other side of the ball to do that to you. So, I mean, massive kudos to Mike Bobo. I think he's kind of shut a lot of people up. And if he hasn't, they just don't know ball.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, no matter what they're going to do, they're waiting for that one little small loophole to be able to come back out there. But when it comes down to it, he wins the Broyles Award. All of a sudden, we get into a national championship opportunity, and he wins a national championship. And somehow, some way, that begins to happen. We start looking at it, and it begins to look like it's coming to fruition. To me, he fits all the different facets now, all those little lock and key places that we have been looking for Bobo to do. And, and it seems to me the reason why he has this black flag over his head is just like with anything else. It's about his past. And I'm going to say this to the fans out there who like college football. I want you to understand that the game of football is still X's and O's. It's still about lining down against your opponent, blocking in the right scheme and right angle. It's about tackling and executing your plays. And I don't care what offensive formation you're in, everybody is beginning to see this evolvement going into this kind of what you want to call the veer and shoot, the spread, the air raid, those kinds of things. Mike Bobo has never deviated from the fact that his program and his offensive philosophy revolves around the pro. It revolves around the pro eye. It revolves around the fact of a two-back system with typically one or two tight ends. It's one of the most predominant offenses you see across the board in the NFL. And I promise you this, no matter how non-sexy you may think it is, it's highly efficient if you use your personnel the right way. It's a way for you to be able to spread out and throw the football if you need to, but yet you are a run and pound team that's going to line down and get north and south on a defense. And I'm going to tell you this, when they line down in their 23 personnel and their 13 personnel, Alabama didn't have an answer for them. They had to have a nickel that lined up outside the 13 personnel and the 23 personnel that was taking on pulling guards and doubling tight ends in duo. They didn't want to do that. That's the reason why, to me, it fits so great with what he's wanting to do, because he's not willing to say, I want to evolve just because all these teams are going to a 4-2-5 nickel now, and you don't really have but 6 in the box that primarily are good at stopping the run. So, by God, I'm going to line down and put 7 and 8 guys down, and we're going to block your ass north and south and get 3 and 4 yards at times. And guess what? Over a period of time, that wears defenses down. And then on the other side, as you said, Scott, the offense is sitting there going, and I know most offensive coordinators don't have a lot of patience. And so the first thing they're thinking is, okay, we're 14 down. We've got to start throwing the football. We've got to get vertical. Let's not try to establish the run game. And that's the reason why I think you see negative 3 yards from Alabama's offense rushing the football this past Saturday as well. Moving on, I really would love to talk more about it because I really love kind of smearing this into the Bobo haters' faces right now. But still, to me, I think this is really important to see him put this on his resume. And Lord willing, we see a national championship at the end of the year with his OC title in the frameworks, in the table of contents, in the glossary, the index, however you want to say it, at the end of the year for the archives of University of Georgia. We got some delusional people out there, Scott. We got these guys on Twitter. They're talking about, 9-3 and obviously didn't make the playoffs. I would hate to be the college football world for Texas football next year because we're coming for everyone next season. That sounds a little familiar, doesn't it, Scott?
I mean, your time was to do it this season. It's almost like that fighter that you spar and you beat him pretty bad, and he says, "Well, next time I'll get you." At first, you're like, "Okay, good. I'm glad you have that mentality." But then when you see it again and again and again, you start thinking, "Well, your time was when we were in the ring. Texas's time was between the whistles before that clock hit 0-0-0." Look, I've seen Texas fans try to legitimize the Georgia game was closer than you think. But to anyone who watches the game control is a major factor in how I interpret a game. At no point outside of that major turnover did the game even seem able to be taken away from Georgia and put into Texas's hands. And then once that interception happened, it was like all right, tightness over. We don't have to control anymore. Let's go back and attack. And you just saw how demolishing Gunner and that offense was to them, how demolishing the defense was. And again, it just breeds on physicality. There is no person that can honestly look at me and say, in the Southeastern Conference, this team's more physical than Georgia. This team's as physical as Georgia. There are a lot of physical teams. I'm not saying they're not. But to watch what Georgia does to these other premier athletes at other programs, it's just amazing. It's because they seek the pain. They're all about hitting and knocking people down and just having that nasty, brutal mentality, but between the whistles. And Sarkisian just hasn't established that yet. And in fact, Sarkisian's got a lot of soul searching to do in terms of the dynamic because you're at Texas, you have these deep amount of resources, you can spend more than anyone, you're stealing recruits away from Georgia late into July after losing a ton of recruiting battles. So we know that comes with a big price tag. At some point, you had your 2-year window, you whiffed. Okay, that happens. When's the next window, coach? Because Georgia's not going to sit around and wait to have another 2024 season.
Yeah.
So best of luck to them. I mean, 25 points is one heck of a margin. So if that's not scary, I don't know what's going to scare Texas. But I don't know anyone outside of Texas A&M maybe that's going to be really scared of what Texas has to offer next year.
And I know that Georgia's psyche about Texas is not any kind of intimidation whatsoever. And to me, that's the business model that Kirby Smart has platformed, where we're going to build quality kids at 4 and 5 stars, and you're going to earn your damn right to be on the field. We're not just going to put you out there because you come in as a 4 or 5 star. You're going to earn that time that's on the field. We're not buying anybody to be on this field. We're going to develop you that eventually you're going to set up lifetime money for you in an NFL contract down the road. But by God, if you're going to play at Georgia, you're going to earn the respect to be on that field, not be bought in just because there's no other way to do it. We can't develop you fast enough. We're just going to pay you a bunch of money and then see what happens. I'm really curious to see the Atkinson kid that's signing with the 2026 class out there. And of course, Justice Terry's got a year under his belt as well there now. If that money's paying off for the development that they're going to have, because I would really love to do a study of these kids who really stay those 3 and 4 years of college, then end up going in the first of 3-4 rounds of the NFL draft to see the longevity of how long they're staying in the NFL compared to these kids who've been paid, obscene amounts of money that are going in and leaving in their 3rd year that don't necessarily get that same development to see what they're doing. And, once they get to the NFL and how long they're sustaining their career in the NFL as well. So we come to our point here, Scott. We look at Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. We've been talking about that. We kind of got into the weeds at the beginning because it was really something that I was trying my best to not jump down the rabbit hole with. But, I brought this in again. This is one tweet from one guy who's a Notre Dame fan. But I'm going to tell you this. If I saw one of these, I saw 20 of them that basically saying, look out, college football world, a pissed off Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame are coming. You've been warned. When I saw this, I absolutely laughed out loud. I thought to myself, you just basically got told that you can't be in the playoffs, so therefore you're taking your ball and you're going home because you're not getting your way. You entitled bunch of pricks. I'm going to say that out loud. I don't care what Notre Dame fan sees this. You can come at me. I want all the smoke. I do not understand how in the world you look at a team just like we did in 2023 when we played to a 3-point ball game, lose in the SEC championship, drop out of the college football playoffs, and every freaking one of our kids shows up for an Orange Bowl and beats the absolute shit out of Florida State and basically breaks them. and there's not one kid complaining or bitching about the fact that they're in there playing this game that is a non-playoff game, and end up leaving that season with high hopes of the next season when we were injury plagued in that game in the 2023 SEC championship game, and then we get knocked out. Funny enough, none of that happens in this previous SEC championship. Us and Alabama play, and nobody moves a spot, which I was going to talk about that in the next segment about why we kind of got, I feel like, screwed in a sense of not being the number 2 versus the number 3. But, Scott, just your thoughts. We won't stay in this too long because I really want to talk about the college football playoff here in a second as well. But just your thoughts on the fact of what's this deal with Notre Dame, and is it something even really I want to talk about it, because to me it feels like I get some justification for something that's been a long time coming when you're an independent that never claims a conference, and now you kind of got slapped upside the head. What's your thoughts on that, Scott?
Well, they technically use a conference. They twisted the ACC's arm where they get the benefits of the ACC for everything else, but they get to do their own thing for football. Look, Notre Dame believes that they're a monolith unto themselves. And what do I mean by that? That they have all this leverage and they have everything that no other program has because of the independent status that they retain. Look, I think Marcus Freeman's a very good coach, but you're not going to convince me that if you gave him truth serum and you said, all right, we're going to give you a blind resume of a team. They went 1-2 against the 3 ranked opponents. Their overall opponent record is 50-58. Do you think they deserve to be in over a team that has the best regular season win, or at least tied for the best win of the season with Indiana beating Ohio State? They beat 4 ranked opponents in a row. They have the worst loss, though, but does that best win mark it out? And they went basically, I want to say they were 3-2 at the time that they accrued it, I believe 2-1 by the end of the year. Who do you think should get in? Especially if that other team's third loss is in a conference championship. He would easily tell you, oh, the 1-2 team doesn't deserve to be in. Look, they're full of it in terms of that they think they legitimately should be in. I've talked to Notre Dame fans that finally gave me their honest assessment. It was just, look, we weren't even doing a watching show because we were at 9, then 10. We thought we were a lock because we didn't do anything. And so we didn't think we should be punished for it. And it's like, well, you didn't necessarily get punished. The committee was in a bind. Do they not honor the head-to-head, and do they punish Alabama for losing badly in Atlanta, a game they earned the privilege to play in? And, oh, yeah, absolutely. Notre Dame, and this is what's worse about it, 225, they have a memorandum of understanding next year. So they're in at 12 teams if they're ranked 1 through 12, which they can't be ranked 1 through 4, but I won't get into that. But if they're in the top 12, they're in. So what message are you sending? It's absolutely 100% what you said, Coach. They're taking their ball. They're going home. They're not sending a message to BYU, even with the backups. They're kind of tainting a season. They're sending a message of, we think we control A, B, and C. And look, some of them are even so spiteful, they think that they're sending a message to ESPN, like, we're not going to let you use our name to make money. Well, like, you're 15th in national viewership per week. It's not like we couldn't get Auburn and Tennessee to play, despite how those teams are, and we would double the viewership. Notre Dame's good in premier matchups because it's 2 premier brands. And Notre Dame is a premier brand. But this mentality that you control the destiny of everything that has to do with the Northeast, it's unreal. And it's a mindset that's stuck in 1980. And Look, cool, you beat Georgia. I'll caveat that to any Notre Dame fan. You're 1-3 against Georgia all time. But this mindset, you have to look at it without emotion. It's just not good.
Yes. And something I'm going to segue with going into this next little piece right here is you're not setting a great precedent to your staff, to your stakeholders, to your kids that have played this year. How about cheating them out of a game that you would love to see them finish up with? The culture and the climate that you're establishing with your kids is showing no precedence that you have the backbone and the stability to deal with this, unlike something that we saw Coach Smart do with his staff. Think about the post-game presser he did with Kamari Lassiter sitting in there in 2023, talking about these kids. They wanted to play this game. They wanted to be in the Orange Bowl against FSU. They didn't care what FSU had gone through. FSU did a very similar concept where you had a lot of guys opt out, but they still played the game. And so Georgia shows up with all their guys. They go out there and they destroy FSU 60-something to 3, 10-7, whatever it was, and, completely obliterate them. And to this point, I still think they broke FSU that night. this is not setting the right tone. You know who does set the right tone? A team that played very well this year, had one of the best seasons that they've had in the SEC, probably in a generation. Clark Lee's doing a phenomenal job at Vanderbilt. I know Diego Pavia, you have to take him in small doses, but there's one thing that's happening. Clark Lee, I think, with the lack of respect now I have for Marcus Freeman doing what he's doing, I even have more respect for Clark Lee. Here's a little presser that he did just this past week, right after we got the news about the Notre Dame team opting out of their bowl game.
You know, we happen to be on the wrong side of that in this moment, but that's no one's fault except for our own. You know, we had our opportunities and we didn't do enough, and so that's the, you know, we are not victims in this process. We're our ownership is in coming up short. I think it's a reminder of how critical every moment is, every snap, every possession, and there's a lot to learn in this season because we want to be back in these moments. But as it is, you know, we'll spend time in the off season trying to get the system more into focus with where the game has gone. In the meantime, we're gonna celebrate the hell out of going and playing in Tampa and having some fun together one last.
I tell you what, if he didn't just put everything that the Notre Dame program, stakeholders, investors, the religious benefactors, whoever is a part of that program, seeing what they have done over this past week and listening to what Clark Lee said about his program and where he's at with his kids, that goes to show you a head coach who is very hungry, who definitely wants to understand the success model that it takes to win. He is setting such a great precedent for his kids to say, we are not bowing down or we are not walking away. I want to enjoy another week of quality football where I get to spend time with my guys, my family, my brothers, and be able to go out there and take care of business as they play down in Tampa in their bowl game. Your reflection on that versus what we've been witnessing from this horror story from the Notre Dame group.
Clark Lee understands as a coach that he's trying to build something and he's doing it step by step in the right way. You're only afforded so many NCAA regulated practices, and bowl games are extremely advantageous for the young guys because early enrollees can participate in it.
Yep.
If you opt out, I'm not sure if you're afforded those anymore. But guys, any coach that you would ask, if you said, I can add 10, 12, 14 regulated practices in addition to it, well after the season to make sure I'm not overloading you and your early enrollees can participate, any coach worth their salt would say, yes, please. And
Yep.
Clark Lee, to his massive credit, especially at a program like Vanderbilt, and not trying to insult them at all, but to build something like he's doing at Vanderbilt in terms of the mentality and the approach, as much as I hate, you know, them trying to steal recruits from us and successfully doing it, Clark Lee speaks and acts like a coach that I respect fully because you can see his blueprint and he's not arguing with the results. That's the thing they have to accept. And Clark Lee's doing it and building it and using it. At least he's talking that way to make it something better.
Yes.
And I mean, kudos to him in such a big way, especially in all this turmoil and all this media stuff and everyone opting out. Now, some of that I kind of understand for injury's sake, but Clark Lee's approaching it the right way, and he deserves all the respect in the world for doing it.
You know, is he disappointed? Sure he is. But the one thing that I see in him is that he sees it as we are not victims here. We need to be held accountable. You know what makes this better? We go beat Texas when we were supposed to beat them. We beat Alabama when we played them. Those are the situations that he's looking at. He's not a victim in this situation where I see Marcus Freeman, staff, stakeholders, everybody involved with that. Every fan that seems to want to back these guys up are backing up the wrong culture climate that you want in a college program. Far opposite, polar opposite to what Georgia is doing right now and what Kirby Smart is working in the framework of his program and what he's doing in the culture and climate of these kids, stakeholders, and all people who are involved. I mean, if you're not proud to be a Georgia fan, I don't know what's wrong with you because we have it so much better than so many teams out there. And to be a part of that delusional fan base that thinks that Notre Dame is doing the right thing by opting out because they somehow deserve that trophy for participation, then they need to reflect on it a little bit different. And that starts at the head up. And unfortunately, the head up is not taking care of business. Good words there, Scott. We finish up the segment today talking about Georgia making the playoffs, obviously coming in at a number 3 seed. They are in. I was a little bit taken back by the fact that we were the 3 seed, not the 2 seed. And a lot of people say that, when you look at the actual bracket here, that, us being in a 3 seed, taking the Tulane Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl winner is a little bit different than being the number 2 seed in Miami at the Orange Bowl. At the is it the Cotton Bowl? I believe it is.
The Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
So Orange is going to be Texas Tech there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, being in the number 2 state where we would take on the Miami, that would be fun if Miami would beat Texas A&M, in that situation that leads out to, not going to the Peach Bowl, but the Fiesta Bowl. But anyhow, long story short, I was just curious your thoughts on this. Is it really a big deal that we are the number 3 seed versus the number 2 seed? And do you like the fact that we're looking at basically to have a rematch with Ole Miss after they beat Tulane, and still looking at the Ohio State as possibly someone in the semifinal in the second round?
I understand the committee's justification, so I'm not really worried about it. You still get the bye week. Really, you're kind of set up in a nice bracket of all the brackets to start round 1. Man, look, you got the second best one. I mean, short of Oregon, JMU, because 9 and 8's a coin flip, 10 and 7's a coin flip. Now, obviously, when we get to the semis and even the quarters, it gets real fast. But I'm okay with Sugar Bowl. Hopefully we kill that curse. But really, the justification for the committee, guys, based on my understanding of it, is look, 2 undefeated regular season teams in a postseason game, one lost by 3 by a margin of a missed field goal. We're not going to punish them and push them past Georgia, which obviously I disagree with, but I'm not going to really worry about the difference between 2 and 3. You're on the same side of the bracket. They continue to keep Bama at 9, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think part of it has to do with keeping them on the other side. They don't want a rubber match between them and Georgia too early.
Yeah.
And they also don't want to punish teams for playing in a conference championship. Guys, they've sent the message loud and clear. Conference play will be weighted differently, and the conference champs will be weighted differently as long as this dynamic holds. And really, I think Georgia got a heck of a good draw.
That's good stuff. And, I sit there and look. The only thing is I see is us with Ohio State. They've got the wins over Texas and Michigan, of course, lost to Indiana, who's now the proverbial number 1, and they're the Big Ten runner-up. I kind of bothered by Greg Sankey, honestly. I think Greg Sankey did not say a word to Kirby Smart when he handed in the trophy this time to congratulate. I think after he kind of threw him under the bus the last time, congratulating Texas and not really saying anything about, UGA coming back and winning in overtime. He just bypassed him completely, handed in the trophy, walked off the stage, didn't say anything. I really find it odd that he just seems to be not a very big UGA fan for some odd reason, which to me, I know Kirby and him may not have a very good relationship. He tends to kind of punch him a little bit every once in a while, little rib punches, things of that nature. But, what I see from that is just his perspective of not being really excited about Georgia being in the, winning the SEC, which is crazy to me considering the run that he's had and the program and the way Kirby's running the program is just unprecedented to me. But I was surprised. I was at the game. We were waiting on after the confirmation of the SEC trophy. We were waiting on him to say something, and there was nothing. It was just celebration. All the confetti fell, and everybody just started. The smoke went up in the air, and there was nothing. Greg Sankey absolutely said nothing when he handed the trophy over. So I'm just finding it very odd right now that he's doing very much to advocate for the SEC, because to me, the SEC champion should be in front of the Big Ten runner-up, especially with their resumes side by side. You can't give it to them because of the beauty pageant of what happened last year. So, I would say this. I'm with you. Honestly, it's one of those, if we were the number 2 seed taking on the Miami Texas A&M winner, I would be okay with that as well, because it would just be the same thing. It'd just be the difference of us playing the winner between Miami and Texas A&M playing the winner of, Ole Miss and Tulane. So we've either got a rematch with Ole Miss, and then we're going to be looking at one of those 3 coming into the semifinals. And I really, honestly, as much as I want to give a little rib punch to the fact that we should be the number 2 seed, I'm perfectly fine at the 3 seed as well. We are Chris and Scott, we are Head on a Swivel. We appreciate you being with us this evening. We've got a lot of people in the chat, as well as a lot of questions that were put out there. We've had over 50 concurrent viewers tonight watching, and we appreciate you being with us this evening. As always, we're highly appreciative of those people who support Head on a Swivel, and as well as with Coach Hayes' Hudl affiliation too. I would really love to take on any questions you might have during this time. This is our hunker down session. I do apologize. I've been under the weather over the last couple of days, and I'm just now beginning to feel normal again with an antibiotic in my body. So that may be the reason why I seem a little congested or a little snotty. So I apologize about that. Chase, I wanted to let you know I appreciate you doing what you do, man. You've been supporting me since day one, and I know you've been a part of the Patreon as well. I see you on here with our live shows. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you. And I was going to let Bill know. I think I saw a comment from Bill just a second ago. I agree with you. I think he does despise UGA.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Coach. He absolutely does. He's tired of seeing the same brand over and over and over again. And you would hope that at some point he realizes where his bread's buttered. Look, the best product on the field is the SEC. I mean, you can just look at the viewership, the retention, all that stuff, all those nerd metrics that make the product what the product is. And for Greg Sankey to have any inkling of despite or just not being friendly with Kirby, he needs to get over it. He's got the best coach in college football, actively coaching in his conference, and he needs to understand Kirby's so dang good he can say what he wants when he wants, and there's nothing you can do about it as long as he keeps winning. Yep. So Greg just needs to get over himself. It is very evident he likes Texas. He likes Texas a lot, and I just think he doesn't want to see that big power G on that championship over and over and over again just because he thinks it's bad for business. But let me tell you, it's not. When the big dog comes to eat, it's always a good time. So
I agree with you. Bill, if you're still watching, I wanted to show you. I got this in the mail today from you, and I want to tell you how much I appreciate all this that you sent me, the patches and the pins and stuff that I can put on. I've actually got a Letterman's jacket that I'm going to be doing this next year that I'm going to put the Coach Hayes logo on, and all these things that you sent me today, man, and the letter that you gave me. I mean, I teared up. As far as Scott can appreciate this too, being a veteran himself, Bill's obviously a retired veteran, and I know that we've had the opportunity to interact with one another as well. And I'm just absolutely, enamored by the fact of how this program and this brand has grown for me and the people that I've gotten to know and network with over the last 2 years that Coach H. Hudl has been established. To have the opportunity to work with people like Scott now and be able to get to know all the people out there that I'm interacting with, that fraternity of Bulldog fans as well as just college football fans in general, has been overwhelming to me, and something that I've really enjoyed, just extending my services of what I know from the game of football and being able to take that into a storyline where I've got so many people out there with all their different stories. And it's been so awesome to listen to your stories, understand where you come from, and get to know people better because of that. And to me, that's what life is all about. And, being able to sit here and break bread with you guys and talk about college football and about the fandom that we have with our Georgia Bulldogs and with college football in general is such a blessing. And I do not take that for granted. So I want to thank you, Bill, if you're still watching, for that special gift that you sent me today, as well as I thank Scott being on the show with me as well and his contributions and what he does, and as well as the fact that he is a veteran in himself and still in active duty and, and serving our country. And that's something that I highly appreciate, having a father who served in Vietnam as a naval officer and someone, that I definitely look up to. So I admire all of our veterans out there that are serving our country and are selfless in what they do. And so it's highly appreciated. Got some questions here. Let's see. You're the commissioner of the SEC and you hand Kirby the trophy and say nothing. What an insult. Without a doubt, James Barkdale, without a doubt.
A really bad look.
Yeah, it was. Love the content, Coach. Got to support the guys putting in the work to grow the community and teach ball. You and Brooks, the real ones. Collab with Brooks would go hard. Funny enough, Brooks, just tell you a quick backstory before we get off here. We've gone over an hour, but, we've had over 50 collected people watching at the same time. And we've had a lot to talk about tonight. And we've got a long ways to go before we play another ball game. So, honestly, to tell you the truth, as much as we've got content to go with, we're not just blowing smoke up your ass. We're trying our best to give you some things to think on. But, my thing is Brooks is the one who gave me the opportunity to do what I do. I started watching Brooks back when he used to do his little promo shows in front of his little Sports Illustrated board that he had back before he even had 1,000 followers. And I'm sitting there watching him, loved his stuff because he was breaking down ball. You know, he was a center, I think at Shorter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So he
Shorter University. I
Yeah,
remember getting recruited there.
yeah, so that's what I'm saying. With that stuff that goes along with it, I'm watching him actually break stuff down the board, and I'm going, I'm a almost retired teacher now, and I'd been coaching for over 20 years, and I sat there and looked at him, going, man, I could do that. So I actually started following Brooks and listening to his stuff and trying to figure out ways that I could, appropriate that as well. So I invested in a computer, figured out the software, and I started running with it. So I have a high respect for Brooks and what he's done, how he's grown, and I'm understanding the work that you have to put into it, because this is not my first job. This is not my day job. I teach for a living, and I'm in that for 8 hours a day, come home every day and put in 3 or 4 more hours in front of the computer. So, but I enjoy what I do. So it's never work, as you've always heard that term before. But yeah, you're right. It would be cool to be able to do something with Brooks. I think that's something that'd be really cool to do, but he's growing his brand very well. I saw him yesterday, he had Gillis on the show with him, and, Shane Gillis. And then, of course, I think that got premiered with ESPN as well. So he's growing his brand, and good for him. I'm proud for him and what he's done. And it takes a lot of work. It takes hella work to get those things to go. So
yeah, absolutely happy for him. He's doing a good job.
Yeah. Would Sankey get mad at Saban if he was still coaching?
No.
I would say no.
No, I don't laugh at that question. I laugh at the fact that how Sankey's extremely biased. He's not very good in the poker face, and you see it all the time. I think what Greg is really worried about is, here we go again. I don't want another brand locked conference where it's always the Power G and just a rotation of who's the second team. And he doesn't like that Kirby calls him out, and he's just honest about it. So, I mean, someone's going to get over it, and it's not going to be Kirby.
I agree, and I think that was sort of the mindset of what Greg Sankey did to Kirby in this ceremony. He was not going to say anything to Kirby. I think that was sort of his way to get back at him for what he did last year, calling him out in front of everybody after he had kind of said, congratulations to Texas, who's done absolutely nothing but play a very mediocre schedule and somehow magically walk into the SEC championship. But yeah, we still, with a quarterback down, with everything happening in the presence of the game, we still figure out a way to win the ball game and beat Texas. So, exciting to see opportunities that present themselves regardless of the animosities we may be building towards us. But the way I look at it, the only reason why you hate it is just like with Steve Spurrier back in the day when we just could not do anything for Florida. I mean, when they have your number, it's just because you're getting out coached and you're getting out athleted. And unfortunately, over time, that has come to the conclusion of what we're doing now to other teams. We're dominating you by having the right kids in the right places, high character kids who want to go out there for the team, not for individuality. And they play for a coach that believes the same mantra as they believe. And I think that's what makes the program so special. So, but anyhow, just appreciate you, Coach, and ask you, and I appreciate you too. I appreciate everybody that's in here. We've had, like I said, over 50 concurrent viewers watching tonight. That's typically the most that me and Scott have had on the show. And Scott's going to be a regular with me on Head on a Swivel. We're going to be doing our rapid reactions after the show. This will go on into next year as well. I'm going to be partnered up with Georgia Sports Autographs. I'm going to be doing free giveaways as part of my Patreon, as well as part of Coach Hayes Hudl and the website for people who are registered, and give you guys the opportunity to win free merch. In fact, before we get off tonight, I'm going to show you the next thing that I'll be giving away as part of the Patreon is a white away jersey signed by Colby Young.
Nice.
That'll be the next one that I'll be giving away. I just sent one out this past week to Jerry Willis out in Texas. He was the benefactor of an Elias Williams signed jersey, again, courtesy of Georgia Sports Autographs. If you guys don't know, in the chat, I have already put the website to Georgia Sports Autographs. And just a reminder, I'm going to go back up here to it just real quick before we get off here, is that if you go in there for like Christmas shopping or anything like that, you can first off just scan the QR code. That is the website with your phone. But you can also go into the actual website. The link is in the chat comment box. And if you go in and do any shopping and you put in the coupon code DAWGSIGN, DAWGSIGN, you will get 20% off your actual total purchase price towards anything that you buy in the store. But anyhow, long story short, really, I was just trying to make sure we didn't have any more questions before we jumped out of here. So I'm going to run back down to set this up. I don't have a nice producer like some of these people have, so I'm having to produce, talk, and get everything done at the same time. I'm assuming, Chase, you're talking about that's nasty, the jersey, huh? You got a chance, man. You're in there. You're one of my premium subscribers to Patreon, so you could be the winner of that jersey next time. It's growing as well. The Patreon is. Bill, absolutely our pleasure. Patrick and I enjoy all your content and hard work to help educate us on them dogs as hell. Keep it up, and we'll be here. Brings a tear to my eye, brother. Just another guy of the fraternity that I've gotten to know through this line of work. And even though you and I have never met each other in person, I truly feel like you're a brother with me. And I can't thank you enough for what you do. Scott, any concluding thoughts before we get out of here for the evening?
Rest up, rewatch all these great games, enjoy it while it lasts, and let's just get ready and start breaking down things about where we're going to move forward, what we'd like to see. And look, just know the guys are going to be working hard in this off period. So I'm excited.
Yes, I am too, Scott. And one thing I was going to let our patrons know about, and the people who are going to be watching, we're still going to be doing a show. We're probably going to condense down to one a week up and leading up into the week of the game. But we're also going to break down, obviously, the Tulane Ole Miss game when it is played on our off week before we lead into the Georgia game and start talking about all of our expectations as we get to New Orleans in the Sugar Bowl. So you need to stay tuned to all those things, because just because we're not playing over the next 3 weeks doesn't mean that we're not going to have content for you. So be sure to check us out. Head on a Swivel as we move forward weekly. And I'm going to still look to put that out on Monday nights. Like I said, we're delayed this one day this week due to my sickness on this past Monday. But Scott was very flexible with me, and I appreciate it. Scott, as always, I appreciate you being on the show with me. Thank you for your input and, as always, your friendship going forward. As always, we love you guys out there in YouTube land and all social media platforms. Appreciate you being with us tonight. Take care. God bless. And as always, go Dogs.
Go Dogs.